welcome to another art class tutorial. Today we're going to learn to draw trees. All you're going to need is some paper and a pencil. Number 2 is fine, sketching pencils are fine, and a mechanical pencil is just fine. And you'll need a pencil sharpener if you're going to use a non-mechanical pencil. So as usual, we're going to start with some basic shapes, and we're going to draw these pretty light because we will be erasing these guidelines later. So when you start with your basic tree, that's your trunk. Then we're going to make the shape of the leaves. Now, different trees are shaped different. You might want to take a look at some outside to see exactly what they look like and what their shape is. But here are some basic ones. We've got our little heart-shaped tree, our oval-shaped tree, and the triangle is going to be our pine. So we have our basic outline here. We're going to start with the trunk. Now the trunk isn't a straight line. It's a bit of a curved line up through the roots. Now you'll want to take one side maybe a little higher than the other because it's not going to be even on each side. So after the trunk, we're going to start with our main branches, which are going to be a little thicker. And they're going to get smaller as they go out and branch out into even smaller branches, like this. And then those branches are going to branch into even smaller branches. And do remember that these branches are round. They are not straight. And you can even add some on the front and maybe some on the back to add some dimension. And then later, we'll erase the guidelines, and that'll give us our branches. All right, so I'm going to start the little cone branch here. Maybe a little cone branch here. Maybe a cone branch here. And a cone branch here. Then we're going to do our medium branches off of that. They're little cones. Can make some kind of long, some kind of short. I'm going to add a medium branch right off the trunk here. Then we'll add our smaller branches from there. Just little forks and tridents of little branches. You don't have to put the little branches directly off of medium either. You can put them right off of your big branches. Something like that. If you want, you can go ahead and erase those guidelines. Just for the branches. And our trunk. When you do the roots, you want to keep in mind that we do have depth, do have multiple layers going on. So you want to overlap those roots a little bit. They're going to look a lot like our branches, just down and a little flatter. So now we get started with the leaves, and that's why we made this shape here. We're going to start filling in. Now it doesn't have to be the exact shape. That's just helping. So you might want to put a tuft here. Just make it kind of squiggly. And sometimes the best way to draw a nice natural squiggly line is try to make a straight line and just kind of let your hand shake. And that gives you a nice texture there. So we're going to be adding some tufts in here in our tree. So just add them about over where some of your branches are. Some of them will overlap, and then in some places the branches are going to show through. Now it seems kind of counterintuitive to draw the branches and then cover them up, but that's how we make it look natural. So in the places where your branches are covered up, you want to erase them. tuft here, a tuft there. So now I'll darken it in a little bit here so you can see what's going on. They almost look like little clouds. They don't have to be totally boxed in, just little suggestions of shapes. And then where your branches are showing through, go ahead and draw those in too. Nice shaky leaves. Gives it a nice tree-like texture. Maybe a couple more branches showing in through here. Like that. Now if your tree's kind of far away, that's fine. You can leave it just like this. That's a nice background tree. If it's a little closer and you want a little more texture, you can suggest individual leaves by just putting a couple little clusters. You don't have to draw every single leaf. Maybe look at a couple leaf shapes. I'm making little teardrop shaped leaves in clusters of 2 or 3, maybe even 1. It just makes it have a little bit more detail, makes it look a little closer. You can put some lines on your trunk or branches to look like bark. And there you go. That's our first tree. So this was our heart-shaped tree. So now we can try the same thing with the oval tree. I'm going to start with the trunk first. Remember, it's a curved line, not a straight line. Just like that. Going to do our main branches. I'll take this one up a little higher. We do another one here, another one here, and another one here. And the medium branches. Just kind of staying with the shape. And some small branches. Just like that. We can erase some of these guidelines. We'll just be tracing that later. It's okay to trace your own things. Have our little squiggly roots. Some behind the others. And then we will very softly put in our squiggly outside leaf tufts. Like that. Then we'll put on our inside leaf tufts, kind of following where the branches go. Tuft here, tuft there, leaving some gaps for the branches to show through. And we erase the branches that we're not going to see because they're covered in leaves. Of course, if you wanted to make a winter tree, you would just skip the step with the leaves and just keep drawing more and more tiny branches until you get a lot of texture. And we're going to draw in the branches that you can see. Just tracing what we did before. So we have that nice structure that you can see inner workings of the tree a little bit. A little tuft here, a little tuft there. And another way to maybe do a medium tree where you don't see individual leaves, it's a little far away, just do some more tiny little tufts that kind of suggest leaves without having to draw every individual leaf. Okay, and then finally we have our pine tree. The pine tree is going to be the same. It's going to have a bit of a longer, skinnier trunk. It's like a big old needle there. You can go ahead and make the roots here. Now for a pine tree, it's going to be a little different. We are going to be following this triangle. We're going to do this motion here. We're going to go out, tuft it back in. And then we're going to stay in the triangle. I'm going to go out and tuft it back in. Out and tuft it back in. Doesn't have to be exactly in the triangle, but it can be pretty close. You can leave a little gap here, maybe a little trunk showing. It's been a hard winter for this particular pine tree. You can erase some of these basic lines. Got a little bit of trunk showing here. Where the trunk isn't showing, I'm just going to go ahead and erase that. Instead of suggesting leaves, we're going to suggest a little more branches, just a couple more straight across squiggles. Just like that. If you want to put a couple wayward branches, that's fine. In the background, maybe. Maybe there's a little stick sticking out here. And there you go. That's your pine tree. When you're done with your trees, draw some grass around it, maybe. Give it some context. You know, maybe it's on a rocky slope. Maybe there's a person sitting here reading a book. That'll give you a little bit to go off for making trees as a background or as the focal point of a drawing. Thank you, and I hope you join us next time.